Hi, I'm Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and in this video, I'm going to share with you two types of relationships. There's really only two types of relationships, and only 8% of people ever get to the higher level of relationships. This higher level type of relationship, if you understand it, will lead you to being able to get access to basically anyone you want, and you can create life-changing situations that lead you to getting 10 times, 100 times, even 1,000 times greater returns on whatever you invest into that relationship. Whereas the other type of relationship, which is more common, is more 50-50. You don't get 10 times or 100 times the results. You actually just get whatever you put into it. So the two types of relationships are either transactional, which is kind of the more common way of doing relationships, where you go into a relationship with mostly the emphasis of what you can get out. And if the relationship needs to be fair, it needs to be economic. Going to the grocery store, for example, is for the most part a transactional relationship. The goal isn't actually to go deeper and bigger. It's actually just that you're going to get a service. But that's how actually a lot of people approach their general relationships, is that they see them as a transaction. If you're not getting what you want out of the relationship, then you're out. And you'll only give what you think will bring you back. And so it's a very low level type of relationship. It's economic, and we have to do it in society to get around. But if you're wanting to go to a much higher level, if you're wanting to succeed, and also if you're wanting to experience a lot more depth, meaning, and growth, then you're going to want to create what are called transformational relationships. Transformational relationships are not about what you can get and acquire. They're actually about what you can give and become. And those are the types of relationships where you actually genuinely love the person and you want what's best for the other person in the relationship, and you're not keeping score. In transactional relationships, you keep score. Every time you give something, you're like hoping for that thing in return, and you're kind of keeping mental tabs on how the relationship is going. Also, there's a really amazing quote from Nassim Taleb in the book Anti-Fragile. But he says, you can know a person's character by how they respond to you when you make a genuine mistake. I've actually made genuine and honest mistakes. In all relationships, you make mistakes. But I've, in even a recent relationship, made a pretty big mistake, and I was very surprised by how that person treated me. They treated me like garbage after I made a simple mistake. They didn't give me grace. They didn't give me understanding. And I've helped this person a lot. And so I thought that was very interesting, is that you can know a person's character by how they respond to you and how they treat you when you make an honest mistake that actually does impact them. In transformational relationships, there's grace. There's lots of understanding, there's patience, there's love, but also both parties are entering into that relationship for the purpose of transformation. So that actually takes me to the work of the Harvard psychologist, Robert Kegan. Robert Kegan developed 3 levels of what he calls emotional evolution. The lowest level is where you're what he calls the socializing self. People at this level, and this is the lowest level, this is what Stephen Covey would call dependent. But at this level, people enter in relationships or stay in relationships out of fear. They're basically dependent on other people, and they're just trying to be a chameleon to the other people. Everything they do is to be accepted. Everything they do is out of fear, and everything they do is to not be rejected. And so this is kind of like high school, where you're like really trying to just fit in, and you'll basically do whatever you feel like other people want you to do so that you can be in the relationship. That's the socializing self. Once you get up to the higher level, you get up to what Robert Kegan calls the authoring self level. And that's where you begin to develop your own agenda, your own worldview, your own goals. And you start to actually engage in relationships for the purpose of furthering those goals. This is a great level. This is where most businesses are in America. And this is where most people get to in America, and probably in other countries in the world as well. Probably more individualistic countries. More collectivistic countries, like in Asian stuff, probably don't approach relationships this way. But in America, this is where most people get to, is the authoring self stage, where they've got goals, they've got agendas, and they just engage in relationships for the purpose of achieving those agendas. If you have a 9-to-5 job and the whole purpose of that job is just to get money, that's a transactional relationship. You're going to work just because you want what the relationship gives you. Yeah, you may enjoy the work to some extent, but you wouldn't go above and beyond. You're just doing what's minimally required to get the paycheck. And if you approach your relationships in that way, of course you can't go to higher levels. So Robert Kegan talks about what he calls the highest level, which he, through all of his research, I think he said it's about 8% of organizations and people get to this level, this transforming self stage, where you enter relationships not for what you can get solely, but you enter relationships for what you can give, and you enter those relationships for the purpose of transformation. When you're at the transactional level, you're not trying to change because of the relationship. You're trying to stay the same, and you're trying to just get more of what you want. But when you're at this higher level, this transforming self level, you enter relationships with the perspective and the belief that through the relationship, you're actually going to become a different person. It's that whole idea of 1 + 1 = 3, or the whole becomes different from the sum of the parts. And so the only way to actually engage in that type of relationship is that you're genuinely giving and contributing and seeking to be changed. You're seeking to learn. And both parties come with goals. It's not that you don't have goals and agendas, but you come together for the purpose of having those expanded and transformed together. And in those types of relationships, you go out of your way for the other person. You actually care about them. You're not frustrated by giving more and more and more and more. As Joe Polish, one of my mentors, says, life gives to the giver and takes from the taker. Zig Ziglar also said, you can get everything you want in life if you help other people get what they want. I know lots of people who are at this transforming self level. I've engaged with these types of people, and I've learned to actually be in a relationship with them. And it's amazing when you actually start surrounding yourself with a bunch of givers. This is what Adam Grant calls. Adam Grant's an organizational psychologist. He's got a book called Give and Take. And he talks about how givers, rather than takers or matchers, are the ones that ultimately go the farthest, but they have to do it in a smart way. They give to other givers, and they do it in a way that benefits all parties, but also they do it in a way that's healthy for them. It's not that you just give to the point of exhaustion and killing yourself. You do it smartly, and you do it with your greatest skills and gifts. But it's amazing when you're in a relationship with those types of people. And it's because there's a lot of humility, there's a lot of appreciation, there's a lot of extreme growth. And the people who are operating at the highest level in business and spirituality, those are the types of people who they don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's just about me. What can I get? It's like, if you want to get into an amazing relationship with someone, it should be about what you can contribute to them and how you can serve them and how you can help them achieve their goals and how you can help them lift their burdens. Think about a marriage, for example. There's probably a lot of marriages that maybe started with the idea of being transformational, where both parties were excited about becoming a new, the two parts becoming a new whole. And it was really about giving. There's actually a quote from Tony Robbins. He says, if you want a relationship to remain, treat it the way you did when it started. When most people start relationships, they're just giving. They're focused on the other person's needs. They're not frustrated by having to get up in the middle of the night to go get them a cup of water or something. It's all about giving, service, growth, and a vision for the future. Well, when it becomes transactional, then you start keeping score. You start getting a little frustrated if the other person's not keeping their end of the bargain. And if you're approaching relationships in a transactional way, then it's really all about what you can get, and you're only going to go 50-50. And there's no transformation that's going to happen. There's no transformation that's going to happen inside of you. There's no radical humility that's going to happen, because you're not going to surprise the other person by what you're willing to give. And you're not going to probably receive abundant gifts or generosity that blows your mind. And when you're in transformational relationships, I will just say this. Sometimes you are deeply humbled by how much the other person is willing to give and support and help you, which takes me to the two last thoughts. There's a guy named Ken Honda. He's a very famous guru in Japan, and he's a guru for finances. And he talks about how one of the things you want to do when you're thinking about your financial situation, and he's someone who's written 50 books on finances, is realize that at the end of the day, relationships are worth more than money. And you can feel completely safe, which is a really important part of creating financial wealth, if you realize that you have relationships that can help and support you if you ran out of money. If you completely ran out of money, do you have people in your life that you could reach out to who you know, love, and would support you? And if you do, then you have true wealth. You have true relationships. And those end up going a lot farther than money at the end of the day anyways, because relationships are what create opportunities. Relationships are what create knowledge and success. And that takes me to the final thought. And that's what's called the self-expansion model. This is an amazing model in psychology. And basically how it frames people is this. It explains that human beings are not self-contained entities. You are not just a floating entity unaffected by other people. Actually, who you are is dependent on who you're in a relationship with. So what basically the researchers of that theory say is that as human beings, we have what's called efficacy. Efficacy is the ability to produce results. And our efficacy as people is potential. It's not innate. I don't just have innate efficacy or ability to learn and create. My efficacy is potential. It's potential, and it's based on who I'm in a relationship with. My efficacy is actually based on the resources I can give towards my goals. Resources being knowledge, could be money, it could be support in some ways. So let me give a really practical example. My wife and I adopted 3 kids from the foster system. Where they were at with their biological parents, they were living in a trailer park out in the middle of nowhere, and they had, to be honest with you, quite little potential in that situation because they had, first off, their goals would have been quite limited in that situation, but also their resources they could give to those goals. Their efficacy, which is their ability to produce results, would have been small. As I can say, when we actually got these 3 kids, they actually couldn't even count. Like the 5-year-old didn't know how to count to 5. And there was just other limitations. They were all years behind in school. They couldn't produce simple results because they didn't have resources in the terms of teachers, knowledge. Once they got into our environment, we were able to get them tutors, which is a form of resource. We were able to give them healthy sleep, healthy meals. We were able to give them resources so that they could produce better results. And so, according to the self-expansion model, all people want to expand, but your ability to produce results is based on the resources you can give towards those goals, and the resources you get are from other people. And here's one final thought that I thought was really profound about the self-expansion model. When you engage in a relationship, when you enter a relationship, you take that other person's resources and you embed them as a part of your own self. So for example, my wife, she is really good at sewing, as an example. Well, now that's a part of me. If I need something sewn, I can ask my wife and she'll do it. And so I can utilize her resources towards helping whatever I'm trying to achieve. But resources are not just skills or money or connections, which those things are amazing. Resources can also be belief systems, mindsets, perspectives. When you enter a relationship with someone, you also get their perspectives and you can ask them questions, and that's something that can support you or help you. And so your ability to achieve things in life is based on the relationships you have and based on the resources you get from those relationships. And the types of relationships you want are transformational, where the sum is greater than the parts and where both parties come at it from the perspective of giving. It's not all about what you can get. And when you do that, then the vision becomes enormously bigger. And then all of a sudden anything is possible. If you're in transactional relationships, it's never going to go that far. You're only going to be able to get you're only going to be quid pro quo. You're only going to be able to go halfway. And there's no going above and beyond. There's no extreme gratitude, extreme giving. It's just, you give me this, I'll give you that. And if it doesn't work, the relationship's over. And those types of relationships are terrible to be in life and business. And if you're in any types of transactional relationships, they're not going to really take you amazing places long-term. Hope that helps. And I challenge you to really get into transformational relationships. And the way you get into those is by actually helping other people, helping the people that you want to help, and genuinely helping them without seeking score, without any belief or worry about what you get in return. At some point, of course, you will get plenty of returns. And at some point, you can share with them your goals, and they'll be more than open to helping you. But it really is about what you can give, and it's about loving the other person, and it's about who you can become through the relationship. And you do that, and basically stuff takes care of itself. You can become quite successful in many ways, but also you're wealthy because you've got relationships that are actually genuine and deep and can take you places that you couldn't have gone before from that transactional mindset. So if you're willing to go to that higher level, that transforming self level, it has to be about what you can give, not what you can get. And it has to be about transformation, not accumulation. All right, talk to you later.